Welcome to another Quantum Conversation. I'm Loren Galey, and I invite you to sit back as we enter the quantum realm, that space of the greater part of you. It is your connection to infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and infinite mastery. Welcome. This is a Quantum Conversations that's taking us off planet and actually exploring our multidimensionality and more of what is light language. What is it from? Why is it important? And what is it doing? My guest today is Althea Lucrezia. She is a beautiful, beautiful multidimensional channel and an ET contactee. And she's here to also share on timelines. So much information coming through this beautiful soul today. Hi, Althea. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really well today. Thank you.
This is a fascinating contact. Your story of as an ET contactee. Let's start there. What happened? Were you a young child? When was this? What happened?
Okay, I'll do it in chronological order.
Okay, thank you.
I always knew that I wasn't from here. When I was about 9 years old, I saw a video on one of those old like box TVs in the 90s, and there was an advert coming of a TV show, and someone was talking there and saying that she was from Pleiades. And I didn't even know what Pleiades was at 9 years old, but I was just like, oh my goodness, like I'm from there too. Like I just felt like, oh, like yes, I'm also from there, sort of thing. So that was one of my first kind of like understandings. And then I mean, I've always been psychic. I come from a lineage of psychic women. My mom is psychic. My grandma was psychic. They never took it up for a living, but all the women in my bloodline and in my family have had very heightened psychic gifts and intuition. And I've had a few different ET contacts. Well, I'm consistently in contact with my higher version of self and galactic family. So that would be kind of like your third eye, your higher chakras contact. But when it comes to more 3D earthly contact, I've had a few different ones. I was taken up on the ships when I was about 3 months old. And they say you can't remember from before 2 years old. I have a very vivid memory of when I was 3 months old, and I remember being on the floor of my room, and I remember turning my head to the side and seeing my cot with like bars, and then looking at the front and seeing the big metal blinds. It was in my old apartment that I grew up in Italy, in Milano. And then I remember the feeling of the wet nappy around my waist because I had peed myself because I was, 3 months old. And I really remember the feeling very distinctly. And then I remember in the morning, my mom opening the door and me turning around and her being like, how did you get from inside the cot with bars to the middle of the room? Like she was just, it was, she was like, what is going on? And then years later, when I was like in my early 20s, I had this vision of this hybrid child who was about maybe like 10 years old or something. And I was told that at the time, as per pre-agreed contracted experience, I had some DNA taken from me when I was 3 months old, to then actually create this child, which was part of this hybridization project. And that kind of came full circle. I never really saw and connected to the child again. But when I did that one time, I think it was like 2018 or something like that, I remember Emmy was a boy coming to my face and his skin being kind of like grayish. He had dark hair and his eyes were like bigger and quite dark. And I just felt this pure unconditional love that emanated and came from him. And he said, like, I'm part of you. At the time, I wasn't a mother yet, but I understood like, wow, okay, this is, the unconditional love that, a mother for for a child has, and then obviously I understood more of that later when I actually did become a mother. But that was one of my ET contact experiences that I had, and that was a very like beautiful and positive one. I've also had experiences that weren't so positive, if it makes sense, like they were carrying a different vibrational energetic frequency imprinting, but they were also needed for my development as a soul and as an individual. So this was back in 2017. I had an encounter with beings that were not really like, I didn't really have my best interests at heart. I was in Italy, and I remember I was in a very, very, like, I wouldn't say a dark space, but I was emotionally quite distraught. I was moving through a lot emotionally. I wasn't in a space where I was feeling good. And anyway, long story short, the next day I was fly back to South Africa, and I remember it was very late. I couldn't fall asleep. I was on the bottom floor of like an apartment complex, but it was like really safe and it was hot. It was early September, so I'd left my like the window door open. I went to sleep, and as I was in my astral, I have very active astral space. I'm very lucid in my astral. I've been navigating the astral since I was a child. I've been doing things like I'm very comfortable and I know what's going on in my astral space. And I was running and I was running and I was running away from beings, and they were coming to get me, and they were aliens and they were coming to get me in my astral. And as I'm running, like people start like dropping dead next to me, and all of a sudden I hide under a table. And as I hide under the table, I physically feel like I start getting prodded in my lower back on this base of my spinal column, and I get instantly brought back into my body, into my physical vessel. And now my head's in the pillow. And so I literally like turn around, and there was like maybe a half a meter between me and the wall. The bed was against the wall, and in between the wall and me, there was literally a gray being that looked at me into the face. He was wearing like a round suit with like short sleeves. It was like kind of grayish, and yeah, he wasn't very big. Like his face was quite big, but the being didn't look very big. And then that was like maybe like 3 seconds. Like I got a good look at it, and then I was physically pushed back into the pillow, and I like heard them leave from the door window that was open. And yeah, and then I froze, and like I knew this stuff was going on, but I didn't think that it was gonna happen to me. And for about 2 hours, I was in shock, like I was in complete like shock. I was like, okay, like I managed to get up and close the window, and then I got in bed for about like 2 hours. I couldn't move. And then the next day I was flying, and I looked what had been, I had fallen asleep at 3. And when I woke up and all of this happened, it was like 10 minutes past 3. So all of this happened in the span, like a very, very short amount of time. I had just fallen asleep. So then the next day I was flying, taking like 2 intercontinental flights. I flew back home. And when I did, I sat with it and I said, okay, like how can I have more clarity? And I was told, go find someone who's going to put you back in hypnotic regression with the qualiJied Dolores Cannon method. So I contacted 5 different people who did this kind of work, and I said, listen, I was about to be abducted by aliens. I need to see what happened. Can you help me? Most of them were like, no, we help people stop smoking. No. And then this one woman was like, yeah, like she was like, you can come here, I can help you. And then when I get to her house, I find out that she had been a psychic for 12 years prior to that. So I was like, okay, like this is the woman I need to kind of like go to for help. And so she brought me back there. We were in for about 3 hours, and I was sent back as my higher version of self. And as I did that, I saw that there were 3 beings. One next to me, one at the foot of the bed, and one closer to the exit window. And as I went back as my higher version of self, I actually addressed them and I said to them, you need to leave. You can't be here. I'm a sovereign being. I'm in control of my body. And all 3 of them turned around and looked at me as my higher version of self, looking back at myself lying on the bed, and they freaked out. They were like, okay, we didn't sign up for this. How is she accessing the quantum? She's not supposed to be there. We're not supposed to be seen. We need to get out of here. And so they left. And that was kind of like how I was sent back and in a way saved myself. And so, how do you really come back to live a 3D life after something like that? Like, it was just like, I needed a perception switch. And as that happened to me, I said, okay, well, if the not so nice beings are here, there must be the really nice and good ones as well. Why don't I connect with those? And that kind of like catapulted me into, my journey. I've had a lot of other ET contacts after that as well, but this was kind of like my main one that sent me onto this path.
Wow. Well, thank you for being so courageous and sharing this story, really, because it's not
Pleasure.
easy, I'm certain. Now, what do you make of this? Because would you, if you've contemplated this, would you say that the beings that contacted you that did not have your highest interests in their mind, do you think that is an earthly, maybe our government or some sort of arrangement with our earthbound, secretive people, or how do you describe that? Because you said how, they looked at you and they're like, how is she accessing the quantum? So you surprised them. So we could call them malevolent, right? Or
Uh,
not the kind.
well, I think every being is serving their purpose in one way or another. What I was told was that this was a pre-contracted experience so that I was supposed to have. But what they thought they were doing is they were actually like moving through houses and places and trying their luck and seeing who they would have been able to, yeah. But because a city like Milano is very, very much asleep, like the priority is, clothes and appearances, and so the consciousness, I mean, it's getting better, the whole of Italy, but and I was then told that they can actually move quite freely there through the subway because there's all the underground different, yeah. And I started seeing them after when I was in and out of the subway. I would actually like see beings because I was able to then see through the quantum. So I think that there's definitely some kind of agreement that goes on. I know mine was a pre-contracted experienced agreement so that I could, have this perception shift. So I don't think that anything that isn't supposed to be happening is happening, if it makes sense. But I do believe that people, should work on raising the consciousness and their awareness as per, is it, the government, it can be anything, you know what I mean? I do think that these beings definitely have their own agenda. They definitely did not expect me to be as evolved as I was. And that's why they were like, actually, no, we can't be seen, like this can't be happening, like we're gonna get in trouble, sort of thing. So there's definitely, more like a structured hive mind that's at work behind it.
Wow. How do you not freak out by something like that? Because here you have, so when you were a child, that was more, that also was a contract, pre-contract. And how do you, like, did you freak out at that? Or, you said it was a perspective shift. And so what do you make of that? How do you, I mean, like, how do you go on and how did you have fear around any of it?
Well, I did, but then I understood that I'm more powerful than anything. And once you remove yourself from that vibrational frequency match, nothing can touch you ever.
There
You
you
just rise above it with the frequency. So once you learn how to do that, like there's no need to have any fear anymore.
Wow, that is very helpful because it's so ingrained in our body from our programming on this planet that we feel fear. And so many people would just go into that fear. Do you think that that's a program? Yeah, that
Yeah,
could be a
it's
program.
all
Program
fear.
to make us go into,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you think that you're a hybrid
Mm,
or you were
You
just
mean,
part to bring in hybrid?
you mean from like a physical genetic DNA perspective or from a soul perspective?
Oh, there's the difference. There's a
Yeah.
difference.
Well, yeah, one's the physical and one's the soul. One's the
I can't.
body, and the other one is.
Okay, so then would you say that humans are human souls are hybrids?
Well, I mean, a lot of humans who are here at this moment of time have had lifetimes on other planets, and existences and lessons on other planets, and then chose to come here to assist. Some of them are very earthly based beings who've mostly lived here. From a genetic and DNA perspective, we all have a lot of different DNA within ourselves from different beings. So to an extent, we are all hybrids. We all part of, the evolution, and we're all evolving in the evolution process is kind of standard. It's here, it's on other planets, the way that it's happened in all the different galaxies and planets. It follows some kind of protocol and structure, for where we are at. But with regards to Earth, I think it's very special because there is such a big mixture of, galactic baseline imprinted souls that come here and do it. Cool to do it.
Okay, beautiful. So, this is so fascinating because here you are as a spiritual teacher, right? You are a multidimensional channel. You are so tuned into your galactic, and we as humans can look up to someone like you, or we can learn from you. You're a way shower for all of us. What is the necessary requirement for us to do to move into this awareness? What would you
Mm.
say that we have to do? What's important?
So first of all, anyone can do what I do. Like, I'm not special. I just practiced for longer. It's like a sport or exercise, or, the more you do, the better you get at it. Everyone has a channel, everyone has an energy field, everyone has a soul. You can all connect to your galactic family, your higher version of self, and whatnot. I think it comes down to the being present in the now, the being grounded. Because if you're too busy worrying about the past or the future, you're going to miss the connection. You're going to miss the opportunity to take aligned action in order to move into a space where you are more aware, you are more present, you are following your divine organic blueprint, you are following your source mission and consciousness and soul purpose. And again, we're infinite beings of light. So a lot of the time people come to me and they're like, oh, what is my mission? What am I doing here? Give me an answer. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, no one can do that for you. You can choose. Yes, we've had lifetimes where so I've done what I'm doing now in many, many, many lifetimes. So for me, it was just a matter of remembering how I've done it before so that I can, do it and navigate it and apply it to this specific moment in time within the ascension and awakening process of the planet. But really, it's just about being kind, being gentle, being compassionate, staying present, and being a good human, while still loving and respecting yourself and having firm boundaries. And if you're able to do that and speak your truth and navigate from integrity your life, then everything else will align. And whatever being from the highest dimensional densities you want to connect to, you can just ask. So yeah, I think it's really just practice and having knowing the tools and knowing how to use them.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for sharing your work and with all those tools. So when we look at the world right now and we see such chaos, do you think that that is an impetus for people to become more grounded and to choose love over fear? Because there's a lot of stuff going down right now that actually is like a pressure cooker, right? It's like it's a pressure cooker for us to surrender to love. Well, how do you see what's going on right now on the planet with so many things changing so rapidly?
Well, we definitely like into a very, very big shift. And I think, the planet and the earth, it's healing its own karma, its own cycles through us, through itself, through natural disasters. I think it's really important to without spiritually bypassing anything, but just holding the vibrational frequency timeline of, light, of compassion, of patience, of unconditional love. Again, without spiritually bypassing the lessons and making sure that we do speak up if something feels out of alignment, that we do speak up if something, feels like it's not fair. And I think on an individual level, the best thing that we can really do is lead by example and shine our light and carry our light with integrity wherever we go. And then things around will level and sort themselves out. I find that, we're at a point where if you're not facing your fears, your shadow, or whatever lesson it is that's coming up for you to be seen, and you're trying to run away from it, like you're not going to be able to. It's gonna catch up with you, you know. So rather learning to surrender to the process, releasing any unhealthy attachment, and just being like, okay, like I surrender. You know, what is needed for me, I accept, I allow, and then trying to navigate that gracefully.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my goodness. That is the name of the game. And you had said your highest version of self, otherwise known as higher self. And you've always been connected. Like when you were a little child, you were always connected, right? So can you share when you really connected more with your higher self? What part of your life did that really make a lot of sense to you, or your awareness that you were seeing your highest version of self? What age were you? Can you share?
I think it must have been around my Saturn return, so like in my mid to late 20s. I mean, when I was doing psychic work as a child, I would get like prophetic dreaming. I would be sent into like these spaces and do energy healing already at like 9, 10, 11, 12. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that I would have to like put my hands and then light would come out. Then I would have to perform like exorcisms on people when I was like 13 in my astral space without really knowing, and then coming back and being like, oh, okay, that just happened, and thinking that it was just the horror movie that I saw when, you know, years later I was like, oh no, actually they were already putting me to work, you know. I had like a phase, I think around my early 20s where I was suppressing a lot because being so emotionally open, I was feeling a lot and I was picking up a lot. And so when I eventually moved through that and started like regaining clarity and opening up more, and grounding and really purposely going into the spiritual path and embracing it, because I was always a little bit in and out of it. I mean, I got my first tarot deck at 12, and then I started with the Reiki at like 21, 22. So I was already kind of into it, but it wasn't like really my full-time job, my full-time work. I was then kind of like thrown into it when the pandemic happened. I was doing events and all my other work was like, well, you can't do that anymore. And my side job was the energy healing. And then that became my full time. And I was like, oh, okay. And then my channel with my light language started activating around 2017. So I was already channeling for about 2 years before I was fully put into it, you know, and offered it kind of like a service. So yeah, I would say that it all kind of happened quite organically. Yeah.
Yes, and I love that story, Althea, because here it is. You're just indicative. You represent the continuing awakening. And so people who've been on that path for a while, maybe it's been this slow journey for us. We're doing the healing, we're working on ourselves, but it seems like you had a rapid, well, you were always dialed in, but there was an up leveling that happened pretty rapidly. And it was like 2017, 2018, right?
Yeah, they told me they had to prep me for the pandemic. So I had to be able to be solid and hold grid while all of that was going on.
Did you see that coming before it was here?
I didn't really have time because at the time I was navigating a physically and emotionally abusive relationship, and I was pregnant as well. So I was put through like the the boot camp in the space of like 6 months. So I could definitely feel there was a shift and like a buildup of things that were happening, you know. But for me, it was a blessing in disguise because it brought me to where I am now. So I'm very grateful for, you know, everything that happened and how it went down within my life and experience.
Wow, really remarkable. I just love it so much. Again, it's I'm blown away because the world as we know it, like think 5 years ago, wow, that was the pandemic. And now think in another 5 years, it's going to be so different, right? It's going to be so different. And when you contemplate what's going on and you hold the grids for the planet as well, are you doing grid work? What are you thinking of the future? I mean, how do you see New Earth?
Well, does it matter right now?
It's a
Do you know what I
vibration,
mean?
right? You were talking about timelines and the vibration of a
Yeah.
timeline.
So for me, it's really important to like hold it and work on it and allow it for what it is now. So I actually just came back I was in the Karoo Desert doing some grid work last week, and I just came back like 4 days ago. I travel all over the world to do grid work. Um, I don't ask, I just do. Let's put it that way. So I think for what I do and how I hold, yes, it's important, but I think anyone in their own, on an individual level, can do grid work as well. You know what I mean? With intention. It can be something as small as setting up an altar space and calling in light around your apartment. Do you know what I mean? And in that way, you're doing grid work. So if everyone starts doing that, it's going to make my life a lot easier. And we're going to get there a lot quicker. The way I see big shifts in 2026, 2027. So this year's going to shift, but we're going to see quite a lot coming up in 2026, 2027. Also 5 years from now as well, also a lot is going to have changed and shifted. But there's so many timelines, there's so much that's happening that it's really difficult to say, you know, this direction, that direction, that direction. And I think we need to be very mindful when we do any kind of like predictions, because we are altering a collective perception. So you also don't want to say something and then it creates something. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, for me, I really try to say, yes, I'm doing the work, I'm bringing the light, I'm doing the grid work. Where am I going? Where is it going? I don't know. It's going to a better place to where we are now. That's all that matters for me. Just working on raising the vibrational frequency.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. That's so good. We are just raising our frequency. And I know that there's light workers out there that get tired of the work and actually just want to be in joy now. And so what do you do if you ever get tired of that? Or have you had that? Or you're
So
no,
yeah, I don't really use my physical vessel to work. Like I do, but not really. I've got a team of about 300 beings that work with me and for me. So I'll create the space, I'll use, and they'll come in through me. And yes, like I'll be tired, but I don't. It's not me and my body and my human being. Do you know what I mean? Like I operate in all these different levels so that my physical and human can still live her human life while doing this type of work. It's taken a lot of years of practice to be able to do this. So when I first started, I would maybe just be able to do like a few clients a week. I mean, now I can do 10 in a day and still go out for dinner in the evening if I feel like I need to, because my system operates in a way that I'm not using my own energy. I'm a channel, I'm a vessel sort of thing. So I did very powerful grid work this past week, and I had a very powerful activation come through that lasted for about an hour, where I was just pulling through codes, and that was running through my system. So that tired me out a little bit. I had to sleep a bit after. I had to lie down. But I was upgrading maybe like 10 kilometers square of land through my system, and I was just directing points and lighting up, and it was about 12,000 people on it that were receiving. So it was quite a big grid that I had to activate through my own body. So that will tire me out, level work to that level. But if I'm you know, working like on a client, or if I'm doing like a workshop, or if I'm holding a conference and things like that, like, yeah, I mean, like I'm human, but I want, it's, yeah, I'd want, I mean, going to gym will tire me more.
Okay. Wow. Incredible work that you're doing, Althea. Thank you so much. And we are empowered when we know that we can do the same thing. So let's talk about timelines, because this, and then maybe we could do a little. We're going to talk a little bit about light language. You mentioned a little bit of that, and then maybe you can demonstrate a little of that so we can feel what that is. But let's talk briefly about timelines. We want to feed. What you're doing with the grids is you're actually working the timelines as well, right? Because it's all about vibration. Can you explain what is happening when we're feeding a timeline and the importance of feeding a timeline with what it is that we want. It's a vibration, right? What's going on there?
So we have access to multiple different timelines all at the same time. So what happens is we have specific lesson checkpoints that we need to tick off. Okay, so the way we get to those lessons and how easy or difficult that lesson is, that's down to our own free will and sovereignty. However, we still need to get there. So whatever timeline we're on, so this is the example that I used this earlier also in a workshop because it's understanding and it explains well kind of like how the timeline works through a lesson. So let's say I get into a relationship with someone, okay? And I need to go through a specific lesson. And this lesson comes through this person. So I get into a relationship with someone, we start seeing each other. It's been like a month, and we agree that we are monogamous and we're in a union. Okay, great. 3 months down the line, I find that this person has not been respecting our agreement, and there's been like inappropriate behaviors and things like that. In that moment, okay, I have two choices. The person is like, no, I'm really sorry. I love you. I want to be with you. Sorry. Let's make this work. Okay. So my two choices are I either leave and sorry, this isn't in alignment. Thanks, but no thanks. My boundary was violated. I don't want to be with you, and that's it. And then I go, and that's my lesson. I've learned it. I've gone, I've left. Or I choose to stay. And I say, okay, like I want to see the best in you. I love you. I think there's potential, whatever. A year and a half down the line, I catch this person like that has cheated on me multiple times, and that's going to be a much harder lesson to learn than the first one. Okay, it's the same lesson, it's exactly the same lesson, but because I didn't listen the first time, the universe had to give it to me in a much harsher way, so much more in my face for me to listen. And then I can choose to stay and then keep on perpetuating a loop of pain and toxic trauma bonding and whatever it is, or choose to leave. And then when I leave, I learned my lesson, and then the lesson can present itself again. And then that's usually when you're tested and you're like, okay, I've learned it. No, sorry, goodbye. And then you move on. So our free will and our sovereignty and our choice lies in between how easily we navigate these lessons, how easily we get from lesson A to lesson B. If we're listening, if we grounded, if we in integrity, if we're within our boundaries, if we're speaking our truth, the lessons are going to be navigated in a way that is more simple. It gets easier. If we're not listening, if we're going against our better judgment, if we're not in integrity, if we're people pleasing, if we're not speaking our truth, if our boundaries aren't firm, and all these things, if we're trauma bonding, then the lessons are going to be a lot harder. So this is the timeline choice. Taking aligned action will bring you into the highest expression of your organic timeline, which is where you want to be. If you are taking action in a way that is not in your truth, that is not in alignment, then that will take you off what is your highest organic timeline and into a side road. And sometimes you can do this and then go back here and then go back there. But ideally, you want to try and stay, in the timeline that is set for your highest alignment. So I don't know if this explains it a little bit.
Yes, it explains it a lot. And so choice, 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 and being, as you said, in alignment and grounded and listening and making the choice out of love. Do you find that sometimes we make choices out of fear? Yes, right? So it's fear or love. And so as long as we're making a choice from love, loving ourselves, right? And not letting people walk all over us, not letting someone keep us from speaking our truth, that is aligning with the highest timeline. Would you agree?
Well, I would say more choices out of integrity and truth. Yeah. Love also is a byproduct of it, but I would say that it needs to be more like in alignment with your integrity and your truth, because you can have love but not be firm in your boundaries, and then that's counterproductive.
Ah, yes, very good. All right. Let's talk a little bit about light language now. So, did you say light language came to you just prior to the pandemic, like in 2018, something like that?
2017, I started
20.
activating. Yeah, yeah.
So
But
what happened there? Like, what were you doing? Because there's so many people that in these years suddenly spontaneously started talking light language. So what
yeah,
happened?
well,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. It's exponential. Like it activates exponentially. When I first started posting videos back in 2017, there were maybe like 10, 20 light language channelers online. Now there's tens of thousands. A lot of people are doing it. So for me, actually, when I look back, I realized that I was already writing symbols as a child. So it was already coming through me as a child. And then it came through before as writing, and then it activated more as movement with my hands, and then my throat started activating and I started speaking it as well. But if you look at my videos of my light language back in 2017 compared to how I channel now, it's very, very different. It's very differently anchored, and it's still me, but it sounds quite different. I was fortunate enough to have a colleague that was already activated and knew what this was, and allowed, and that helped me. And, I was like, okay, well, I'm not going mad. This is actually a thing. And yeah, and then I just started to very much get the calling to share it online and, make videos and, work through the socials. And then, yeah, it kind of like expanded. And with every video, it was a bit more of an ego death, because obviously in the beginning, your mind is like, oh my God, what are people going to think? People are going to think I'm mad. Especially at the time, like no one was doing this. It was like, insane. But then I learned that the information went where it was needed and where it was meant to be seen and where it was meant to be heard. And then I just kind of like surrendered into the process. And yeah, it's brought me to where I am now. I think light language is the new technology that's coming in to assist raise the vibrational frequency of the planet. It works beyond the constraints of space and time. So it's really, really versatile and can be used in many different ways, aspects that can be expressed in many different ways. So yeah, I think it's a very wonderful tool that we have available right now.
So if you were to define light language, is it the sound of source, or how would you describe?
Um, I would say it's a direct expression of source through the individual.
Okay. Can we do a few moments so that we can hear
Sure.
your expression of source?
Yeah, I can do a transmission, so you can just close your eyes
Great.
and start anchoring into your body as you find your comfortable breathing rhythm. With every inhale, you breathe in light. With every exhale, you release all that doesn't serve you anymore. As you relax body, system, and energy field, you stay in a space of openness and oneness. As we call on the Archangelic Collective, Michael to the south, Uriel to the north, Raphael to the east, Gabriel to the west. We call on Archangel Metatron with his blue cloak of protection from above. Son of one to seal the grid from below. So we call on our higher selves of spirit guides. Anyone else wishes to be present for the greatest and as good, you're welcome to the space. Shukruku Aishinayatra, Tre Kuruku Aishinayatra, Triatrik Urukuna Ise Ishirayatra, Kia Kurukut Kraya Senuk Ora Ishinayatra, Tre Atkiera Tarokurukut Krasiana Rea Shet Kraya Tikuruku Aishia. Kriatre aesiet kro anniaratre atre utkurayatra shit kroaya senatie. Opening, 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 opening systems. Being releasing, 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 opening, releasing, opening, 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 opening as we anchor in. Divine rays, more light, anchoring, 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 anchoring. Raya trikoroko ishinayata. Sheta kriati korokot krasia ishero korokot karaya shinayatra. Triatre korokot kraya sheroko ayatre aishirayatra. Triat kiero korokot kra ia ishinayatra. Tre okorokot kra ia ishinayatra. Kra tre otkura ishera yatra tre atria tre yo na yare atkrio korokoro ishena yatra. Krat kriya tre otoko raya 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 rea 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 raya rea rea tkraya shena yatra. Kraya tre tre okorokoa ishena yatra yeshena yatra kiaratra. Kriya tiero torokoro tria itera ishena yatra. Shukrokuro ishena yatra trea tikara korokot kora ishera yatra. Krat korokoa ni ishira yatra, ishiro korokoa ishina yatra, kra korokora ishina yatra, ara itrea koroko o ishina yatra, si esero korokoa ishina yatra. Now you can gently start anchoring back into the body and back to the physical vessel. Yeah, ideally keeping the eyes closed throughout the process. Whenever you feel ready, you can come back to the now and the present moment and anchor in. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling buoyant and uplifted and actually crystal clear. Why do I feel crystal clear?
It's probably just cleared stuff that was in your field that needed to be released.
Wow. So this is how light language works, and this is what it is, and it's always so different. And you said earlier that it knows what to do. So for my experience, and then someone else receiving it, they could feel something totally different because
Yes.
it's like scalar energy, isn't it? It's scalar, God source energy. So that is so magical. I just can't wait for science to show up and confirm what's happening with light language. Like I can see that day. Hopefully in another 5 years, when we look forward, science will say, yeah, there's something here. There is something here. Do you think about that at all? Science and
Um,
confirmation of what we're doing?
well, I think, the quantum realm is the bridge between science and spirituality. So we already have kind of like a connection there. And I think the more people get activated, the more people start to awaken and expand. And like some people have like the full visuals and they'll see the geometry with the light language and they'll see how it integrates within the systems. So yeah, I guess, hook me up to a machine and
Yeah. Yeah.
and and pull it through. It's not really something that had crossed my mind. I don't, in our line of work and in what I do, it goes where it needs to go and it's believed where it needs to be believed, but for sure, like on a mass scale, it would be amazing if there could be more tangible proof for the more skeptics, let's put it that way.
Yeah. And I'm just seeing a vision of like a football stadium or a large arena. Can you imagine? You just do the math on one football game in America, the football NFL, right? Do the math on one football game, and it generates a lot of money, and that actually is taking us into the old paradigm. But imagine if we take that same stadium and you have light language people speaking to that audience, what that would do. Wow. That is just so. I don't know where I'm going with this except just to say I see that and I see the power in that. So, light workers out there who do channel light language, I hope everyone can see the importance of it. I can see the importance of it. We can all do this, right? What is it that keeps people from speaking this light language? If we can all do it, is it our ego, as you mentioned, your own ego deaths to be able to do this? So, do you see everyone being able to do this, or what's blocking us?
Well, I think everyone can express through themselves, but some people will move through the language in a way of dancing. Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily that everyone is gonna start speaking it. I mean, they can, but every person is different. So everyone will express in ways like artists express it all the time through painting, that's their way of having it brought through. The fact that the way that the light language is starting to be used now is more intentional for a healing purpose, and so that's why it's coming through in the way that it's coming through. It's having different energetic galactic imprintings that it didn't maybe have before because it wasn't allowed, because the vibrational frequency of the planet wasn't at a point where it could carry that through, because I mean, people have been speaking in tongues since forever, but the vibrational frequency that was carried back then is very different to the galactic imprinted vibrational frequency that is being carried at this moment in time through the light language. So yeah, I don't think that per se necessarily everyone is meant to express it in that way and in that healing purpose for the collective, but they can definitely be expressed on an individual level and for the consciousness of the individual. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, and so for those who are familiar with speaking in tongues and those who do have spoken in tongues, when they feel light language coming through. They've reported it's totally different. It feels completely different. So beautiful. Okay. Well, more will be revealed on light language as more of us step into it and we experience it. And so you have a child, yeah? And is your child of age to be aware of light language?
Yeah, she communicates in light language, yes.
What a leg up that your daughter has with a mom like you. What a leg up in the world, really. So beautiful and so precious. Okay. Well, when we look at the world and disclosure is actually happening right now with a conversation like this.
Exactly, yeah.
So, do you have anything else to add about disclosure or what you might sense, how that might come about any differently than it is now?
I think disclosure is already happening on an individual level and on a collective level. I mean, like there's people coming in contact with ET beings all the time, consistently. They're working, they're assisting, they're helping. They're helping us with expansion. So I'm very excited for the future and I'm very excited to see how this all unfolds and opens up.
Yes, thank you. It is exciting. Okay, Althea, we are excited to have you share about a workshop you're going to be doing on New Earth One Network. This is understanding karmic relationships and divine unions. This will have an activation of light language. Share with us why this is so important and how it will transform us.
Yeah, I think this is a lot of star seeds and a lot of people going through the ascension awakening process who really struggle to understand the difference between the karmic lessons, the soul ties, the soul contracts, the trauma bonding, divine unions, the twin flame unions, the twin ray unions. There's all this different terminology that has come through. And I think in this workshop, I can really help to compartmentalize and help people understand like where they're perpetuating like a pattern that isn't serving them and where actually there's a genuine connection where they might be realizing that there's a trauma bond of some aspect and understand the difference between all these experiences and how they can really empower themselves to be solid and grounded and safe and supported within that space first before they are actually in a space where they can attract a union that is divine.
Thank you so much for offering your wisdom and your teachings to support our planet at this time. We are really grateful for that, and we're excited to have you on New Earth One Network as well. And we invite everyone who's watching and listening to join in because anyone who's watching this conversation, yes, you are called to expand in this way and explore your own multidimensionality, light language, galactic family, all of that. Beautiful. So, Althea, as we say goodbye, my last question would be around your intergalactic, your family. You shared that you've got 300 beings around you. How do we cultivate that same sort of relationship? Because we can all do that too, right? How would we do that?
I think just sit and ask. Like literally just sit and ask. Like a lot of the time, people are like, oh, but like my higher version of self isn't helping me. Like, why are my guides not here? Like, yes, but are you asking them? There is something called the law of non-intervention, which means they cannot help you unless you ask them to, because then it would mean that they're going against your free will. So you really need to sit and ask and speak to them and communicate.
Thank you for that. That is such a beautiful reminder for angels and all of it. We need to ask, we need to meet them. Thank you. All right. Any final thoughts as we say goodbye?
Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful, and I hope that the message and the information goes where it's needed and is received without judgment and with an open heart.
Receive it with an open heart and an open mind. And I can feel the shift in consciousness of our audience and how that has truly opened this world to more beauty, more love, more compassion. And so I thank you, Althea, and I thank everyone for watching. And we are so grateful for all the light that everyone brings and anchors onto this. Thank you for listening to this quantum conversation, and thank you for dancing with us to the cosmic heart. As we raise our own vibration, we raise the vibration of the planet. This show is dedicated to you and all awakening hearts, as we are here to shine our bright light and amplify our love. I'm Loren Galey, and from my sacred heart to yours, I honor your magnificent love and light. We leave you now with music from the universe. Music literally created by the universe, as musical notes were assigned to mathematical equations. The result is this beautiful music, available at acoustichealth.com. Namaste.